Order our February 19th, 2019 regular meeting of the Mason County Board of Commissioners. Begin with our Pledge of Allegiance. Ben, if you'd please lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you, Ben. Move on to item number 3. The clerk would please take the roll.
Commissioner, District 1, Randy Netherland.
I'm here.
Commissioner, District 2, Kevin Shooty.
Here.
Commissioner, District 3, Sharon Trask. I'm here.
Very good. Moving on to item number 4, 4.1. If the clerk would please report the correspondence.
Mason County Republican Central Committee sent in a resolution in support of the Second Amendment Sanctuary Cities and Counties. And the United States Department of Agriculture sent in a proposal deadline extension for Title II, special projects on federal lands.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Item number 4.2, we have a news release for the Lewis Mason Thurston Area Agency on Aging Board vacancy. And I will go ahead and read through that. Mason County is seeking applicants to fill one position on the Lewis Mason Thurston Area Agency on Aging Advisory Council. This Lewis Mason Thurston Area Agency on Aging is a local governmental agency that provides home and community services for seniors and adults with disabilities to help them remain living in their own homes. The Advisory Council makes recommendations to the governing board and staff. Members serve a 2-year term and meet the first Wednesday of the month at the Area Agency on Aging office at 2404 Heritage Court Southwest, Suite A in Olympia, from approximately 9:30 a.m. to 12 p.m. Members are not paid, however, automobile mileage is covered. The website address is www.lmtaaa.org. We invite interested persons to apply for this commission by completing an advisory board form that can be downloaded from our website, www.co.mason.wa.us. Forms and Brochures tab, click on Commissioners Department, or by calling the Commissioner's office at 427-9670, extension 419, or 275-4467, extension 419. And next we have another news release, the Substance Abuse Prevention Grant, and ask Ben to come forward and please read that.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it. Ben Johnson, Mason County Public Health. It's the North Mason Received Substance Abuse Prevention Grant press release. Mason County Public Health and the North Mason Substance Abuse Coalition have recently been awarded a Department of Behavioral Health and Recovery, or DBHR grant, designed to help communities implement substance abuse prevention and evaluate their impact. Mason County was awarded $100,000 for year 1 and $110,000 for year 2 to strengthen and implement prevention programming in the North Mason area. A similar project has been funded in the Shelton School District for the past 3 years. A coalition was established in North Mason and has been meeting since April 2018 in anticipation of application for the funding. The grant is focused on prevention, and goals include understanding factors that contribute to youth alcohol and other substance use, decreasing alcohol, marijuana, opiate, and e-cigarette use, or reduce initiation of a young person's first use, and engage in the community in working together to make a significant change. The coalition name, Prevention Education Partners Coalition, is meant to empower every member of the community to take ownership of their community's future. The first step of this process is to understand the problem so that data-driven decisions can be made. The coalition is asking for your help to take the time to share your voice and providing input. They are seeking members to assist with the first goal of working on a plan that will evaluate needs and complete a gap analysis through a strategic planning process. The grant will also be funding parenting projects and a peer-to-peer school-based prevention education program in the first year. They are looking for your help and feedback with this process and would like to invite those interested to attend the coalition meetings, which meet the third Thursday of each month from 4 to 5:30 p.m. at North Mason High School. For more information, contact myself, Ben Johnson, Coalition Coordinator, Mason County Public Health at 360-427-9670, extension 545.
Great. Thank you,
Thank
Matt.
you.
Moving on to item number 5, it's our open forum for citizen input. We have a 15-minute time limit and 3 minutes per person wishing to speak. If you have anything you'd like to address the commission on that is not on today's agenda, I ask you please come forward, and Chair will recognize you.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. Long time no see. My name is Tom Davis, for the record. I'm a resident of Mason County. I am going here to speak about 1639 and the sheriff's declaration not to enforce it. And I do this publicly only because the sheriff chose to do it publicly also. The sheriff's office makes a lot of discriminatory decisions, and I would have honored that had they just done so. But once they stand here and say, I am not going to do my job, that deserves a public statement from my part. To start with, and what should be the beginning and the end of the conversation, is that the sheriff has no authority not to enforce the law, period. That's the end of it. That should pretty much cover it right there. So what he's doing is he's engaging in an exercise of civil disobedience. Problem with that, and I respect that, if he'd like to go out on the street, lay down and kick, I'll join him. But he's doing this within the capacity of his position, which extends liability to the county and to his office. That concerns me. If he wants to do it privately, that's his own business again, and I would be glad to join him, but not publicly, not within his position. So I would say that the sheriff needs to rethink this. Now, the law doesn't go into effect, my understanding, until July 1st. Rethink this. Right now, all we have is a lot of talk. If on July 1st he has not retracted his statement and he intends to go ahead with that, I will completely discontinue all my association with the Sheriff's Department. I will surrender my volunteer badge and so on, because I want nothing to do with an agency that doesn't abide by the law. I spent 5 years of my life telling people in jail to abide by the law, and I'm not going to sit there and listen to excuses just because he happens to be the sheriff of this county. Also, I think what's worthy of consideration is that while 55% of the people in Mason County did in fact vote against 1639, 45% of the county voted for it. You can't just sweep those people under the rug. And the 55% of the people who did vote against it did not authorize the sheriff not to enforce it. They simply registered their opposition, which is their constitutional right. They exercised their constitutional right. That was not an authority for the sheriff not to enforce 1639. When you go into the service, you take an oath. And I take my oath seriously, as most people do, but not all people do. And the oath is, and it starts out the same both when you go into the military service, or you take your oath of office for an elected official, in this case for the sheriff, and it says, I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States, and so on. Nowhere in that oath does it say you have the right to interpret what is in the Constitution. Nowhere. When you arrest somebody, and people get arrested all the time, and they say, I have constitutional rights, what does the deputies do? They say, tell it to the judge. And that's what the sheriff should do. Tell it to the judge. This is a process in place. If you try to jumpstart this process, if you try to go around this process, you do more harm, you do more damage than you do good. This is not a hero's actions. And I've seen some of the comments, which I usually don't comment on in here, but on the websites. This is not the action of a hero. This is someone who's engaging in civil disobedience at the county's expense. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment? Tricia?
I'd like to further what Tom, Pat Vanderhay, 111 Southeast Lupin Place, what Tom said. What about the rest of us that are concerned about our safety and health and welfare because of all these guns that are everywhere, and the statistics of all the mass shootings and killings, and it goes on and on and on and on. I have been against gun violence. I'm 84 now, and for the last 60 years, I've been hoping that some sanity would occur so that we all could be protected. And not that just these people that are running around with a gun and openly displaying it. If I saw somebody somewhere in a mall that was openly displaying a gun, I'd start screaming out loud, "He's got a gun, he's got a gun," because you don't know what this idiot might do. And I don't think that our rights are being protected. We have rights too, to be safe and to be able to go out and just do ordinary life without being afraid of being shot down by somebody. And that's my input on that.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to item number 6, which is adoption of our agenda.
I move that we adopt the agenda for February 19th, 2019.
I will second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the February 19th, 2019 agenda. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And the motion carries. We have no minutes to approve today, so we'll move past that, move on to item number 8. Item number 8 is our approval of the action agenda. Commissioners will read through the items on today's action agenda, at which point there's an opportunity for questions or items to be removed for a separate vote and discussion. Commissioner Trask, if you would please read items 8.1 and 3. Commissioner Netherland, if you'd take 8.4, 5, and 6, and then I will take 8.7 through 8.9.
All right. Item 8.1, approval to set a hearing for March 5th, 2019 at 9:15 a.m. to consider a speed limit increase from 45 miles per hour to 50 miles per hour between milepost 0.78 and milepost 7.40, and decrease the speed limit from 45 miles per hour to 35 miles per hour between MP 7.40 and MP 11.75 on Belfair to Huya Road. Item 8.2, approval to authorize ER&R to declare a list of equipment and vehicles as surplus and allow ER&R to dispose of pursuant to Mason County Code and state laws. Item 8.3, approval of warrants and treasurer electronics remittance. Claims Clearing Fund, warrants number 8062275 through 8062578 in the amount of $484,499.80. Direct Deposit Fund, warrants number 56472 through 56830 in the amount of $643,426.63. Salary Clearing Fund, warrants number 7004211 through 7004247 in the amount of $916,708.25. Treasurer Electronic Remittance for January 2019 in the amount of $127,760.57.
Mr. Chair, item number 8.4 reads, approval to set a hearing on February 26, 2019 at 6:15 p.m. to consider the sale of surplus parcel 22213-11-60030. Item number 8.5, approval to sign Mason County Park Host contracts for Oakland Bay and Sandhill Parks with a provision for extending additional years with agreement from both parties. Item number 8.6, approval to appoint Deborah Jameson to the Lewis Mason Thurston Area Agency on Aging for a 2-year term ending February 12, 2021.
Item 8.8, approval of the memorandum. 8.7, approval of the out-of-class pay for Megan Andrews from January 31st, 2019 to February 15th, 2019 for working in a higher level of job classification duty due to the absence of the employee who normally holds the position. Item 8.8, approval of the memorandum of understanding between Mason County Community and Family Health, and Teamsters Union Local Number 252 for participation in the Washington Paid Family and Medical Leave Program. Premiums will be split as outlined in RCW 50A.04. Item 8.9, approval of the resolution opposing implementation of State Initiative 1639, or the enactment of any legislation that would infringe upon the lawful rights of its residents to keep and bear arms. And then I was just handed, there was an item added last week that I didn't have on my copy of the agenda. Item 8.10, approval of the resolution declaring a local emergency in Mason County caused by a severe winter storm. Having read through the items on today's action agenda, are there any questions or items commissioners would like to have removed?
Clarification.
Sure.
On item number 8.3, Claims Clearing Fund warrants, the beginning number was 8062278 through 8062578. It was incorrectly read as 5.
Okay.
Just wanted to be safe.
Okay. Any other questions or items to be removed from the commission? Okay. Any questions or items to be removed from the public?
Mr. Chair, 8.9 for comment.
Okay, so we'll remove that for a separate discussion and vote. Any other items, Patricia? Okay, okay, very good. We'll remove that for a separate discussion and vote. Any other? Okay. So with item 8.9 being removed for a separate discussion and vote, I'd like to, is there a motion to approve the remainder?
Mr. Chair, I move that for the approval of the action agenda items, 8.1 through 8.8 and also 8.10. We're removing 8.9 for separate vote.
Is there a second?
No, there's a second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded to approve items 8.1 through 8.8 and 8.10 with the exception for removing 8.9 for a separate discussion and vote. Any additional discussion? Okay, hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And the motion carries. And that moves us on to item 8.9. Just give me 1 second here. Get to the. Do we not have links again this time?
She'll teach you how. Go ahead. And you guys laugh at me with my paper.
Oh, yeah. Get to the end here. Okay, so item 8.9, approval of the resolution opposing implementation of State Initiative 1639, or the enactment of any legislation that would infringe upon the lawful rights of its residents to keep and bear arms. We'll move on to any questions from the commission before we move into public comment. Okay, move into public comment. Is there anybody for comment?
Is there going to be a presentation of what the foundation of this is?
Sure. Yeah. So I did bring this resolution forward a couple of weeks ago for consideration from the commission. As the initiative states, 1639 was opposed by a majority of residents in Mason County. I understand it was supported by a majority statewide. As I've said previously, I believe that the scope and size of this initiative is a burden on local law enforcement in particular, but also is a burden on law-abiding gun owners in Mason County. And so with that, I brought forward a resolution that would request our statewide elected officials to relook at this issue, to run it through a legislative process, and to evaluate the issues that exist within the initiative as it was written and presented to the public in 2018. As has been said a number of times, a number of constitutional issues have been raised regarding 1639. And was, as pointed out to us earlier in today's meeting, the courts will ultimately have the final say in that. I think it's important, in my opinion at least, for our constituents to know that where I stand on this, and with consensus of the commission, where we stand on it and the concerns that we have as that process moves forward.
Thank you, Commissioners. Tom Davis again. I admit to being somewhat surprised, and when you didn't, I couldn't make it to the last meeting. The last meeting was canceled, and I was hoping that would somebody would take a breath and say maybe this isn't in the best interest of the county to make a declaration that has neither authorization nor any real meaning. It's effectively impotent. It's doing nothing but pouring salt in the wound, causing more division. It certainly doesn't reflect my opinion. And I want to go on record that saying it's not 1639. I want to be very clear that what I have an issue with, I may or may not, that's my own business, but I have a big issue with you putting this on the agenda. It's not as if, I mean, how many people called you? If 1,000 people called you and put you on the agenda, it's not enough. It's not enough for you to come together and make it a resolution that has absolutely no substance at all except to exacerbate the division within the county. So I would respectfully suggest that what this is enabling rather than preventing or supportive or bringing anybody together. It's enabling more divisiveness with the county. I'd like very much if you would take this, if you would not approve this agenda, if you would reconsider and maybe have a little bit more discussion about it before you pull the trigger on this. I just don't think it's worthy of your consideration. And quite frankly, and perhaps I shouldn't say this, I've considered you, and you're my representative, Commissioner Schutte, and I don't always agree with you. More times often than not, I do not. But I've always thought that you were level-headed. This is something that I would have expected out of someone else, that was a little bit more emotional. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional comment?
Is it okay if I ask a question of
Can we, sure.
I just was curious, is there a specific verbiage that you dislike in there, or the whole thing?
The whole thing.
Thank you.
Okay. Patricia?
Again, Patricia Vanderhay. It's my understanding that the Attorney General made a statement and instructed that this had to be obeyed, that you couldn't take it upon yourself just to disregard it. I wonder how this would set with him right now, seeing that this is on the agenda. And I plan on sending some information to him and asking him, is this legal to happen? The whole concept of this idea of bearing arms was made back when they had muskets with one bullet in it, not with these war armaments that they're walking around with or being able to use. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. It has no concept for anybody except these people that are so intent about having a gun. We're not living in the wild, wild west anymore. We're not having Dodge City and having Wyatt Earp and all these other idiots out with running around with guns. Why do we have to have this in what we call a civilized society? It just is a black mark on the whole United States and the whole world, except if you want to do with communist countries. But I don't think they allow the public to have guns like that either. It's just not fair to everyone. And I keep saying, we have rights too. And our rights to our health and safety are more important than this setup for people with guns. And it says in there, for a well-regulated militia. How many people that have guns belong to a well-regulated militia? Do they even know what it means? It's just, well, it makes me think of little boys running around playing cops and robbers or whatever it is. That's what I equate it with. It's not responsible, intelligent, concerning citizens. It's just somebody to have this damn thing, and I suppose it makes them feel, and it's mostly men. There are women that way, but I think it's this look what a powerful stud I am, because I have this gun and I'm walking around with it, and I'm liable to, if I don't like what you're doing or saying, I might just shoot you. So that's my comment on it.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from the public? Okay, hearing none, I'll close public comment and move to commissioner deliberation and a potential motion. Commissioners, any comments?
Want to comment first? or-
Sure.
Okay.
Either way, however the spirit moves you.
I don't disagree totally with what you said. I do with what you said, and I'll explain some of that. I am not a fan of doing things that have no huge impact or benefit. But at the same time, as you know, I've always lived by the rule here, that unless I am against something, I will support the work of my other commissioners. Not only, I'm not against, I'm not a fan of that law, and I'm not gonna pretend to say that I am. You know, me and my family, of course, we do own guns, and I have guns that I've given to my sons. My oldest son has my first gun, my very first gun. He has it, I passed it down to him. There's different things that I have issue with it, but the main part is when one of the commissioners feels strongly about something, if I'm not completely I can't say the word today, against it, I stand with them, and I will probably be doing the same thing on this one here. I want to point out something, though, that in response to what we were talking about civilized nation. Eisenhower, after he first entered into one of the Jewish concentration camps, he went in and saw things that blew people away, because we all thought of ourselves as a civilized nation even back then. It was so horrific that the first thing he thought of doing was going in with cameras and taking pictures of this stuff so nobody would ever forget what it was like and what it looked like and what humanity can do when left unprotected. Ronald Reagan was one of the people who actually, he was in the service, and he was in the film corps at the time, and he actually stole one of the videos and took it home. And literally many years later, when his son was 12 years old, he made his son watch that video to let his son know that no matter how awesome we think we are, this is what we can become if we're not protected and we don't stand against these opportunities and these people and things that may come against us. And sometimes the only way to do that is with firepower. It may not be popular, and I understand that, but I certainly do not want to take that away from anybody else. With that being said, I do not care for doing things just as a bumper sticker, but at the same time, my colleagues are very strongly opinionated in this, and I don't disagree with them, so I will be voting for it also if there was a motion made. And actually, I appreciate them standing up for their own beliefs, because they're allowed to have them too.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Trask, any comment?
I want to second what Randy said. I'm a strong believer. Grew up with guns, hunted, got my hunting license, went through the courses, and hunted with my dad. I'll never forget those memories. And so I never want to step on anyone's rights to have their guns and to be able to hand them down. My brothers have my father's guns. And so I stand firmly behind this resolution.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Just a couple of comments from me. First off, I appreciate hearing from Patricia and you today, Tom. I think the fact that we can come together and have this conversation, I certainly respect your opinions, though I disagree with them. I think it's healthy to have that conversation, and I appreciate you taking the time to come in today and share those thoughts with us on this resolution. I have a little bit of a different experience with some of this stuff maybe than many others. I don't talk about it very often, but when I was going to college back in Pennsylvania, when I was at Penn State, I worked for the Pennsylvania State Police as a legal assistant, and I did background checks for firearm purchases and concealed weapons permits. Pennsylvania is a bit different than Washington in how they organize it. They have a centralized, state-run instant check system that mirrors the federal NICS instant check system. And we would work you know, our shifts. It was, you know, do checks from 8 in the morning until 10 at night, statewide, 365 days a year. And most of those checks were done within a matter of seconds. They never got to me or my colleagues to review any of the information on there. And that tells you, one, that, you know, there's a lot of people that are purchasing firearms that are law-abiding, that are responsible, that adhere to the letter of the law with, you know, with good intent, whether they're sportsmen or target shooters or hunter, however you want to look at, you know, where they're doing it for home defense. People purchase guns by and large as law-abiding citizens. Wasn't always the case. It wasn't always the case. When it would end up on my desk is you would sometimes see a person who had a rap sheet, you know, maybe multiple arrests in different states. Maybe there were federal charges, maybe there were, you know, just state charges. And you would see they were arrested for a number of prohibiting offenses. Because as you know, there are already, between state and federal law, thousands of laws and regulations on firearm purchasing and ownership, okay? And you would see somebody on a rap sheet that would have a prohibiting offense that they were arrested for. And then you would go through and you'd look at the court docket and you would see how that was adjudicated. And you would see that that prohibiting offense was maybe pled down to a much lesser charge. And that person was not prohibited from purchasing a firearm. But I'll tell you what, if you looked at their rap sheet, you would say this person has no business owning a firearm. We would also see a lot of instances of straw purchases, where I got a buddy who is legally prohibited from owning a firearm, but I say, hey man, no worries, I'm going to go in and I'm going to do the paperwork and I'm going to buy it for you. That's a crime. Sometimes it gets through, sometimes it doesn't, sometimes we catch it, sometimes we don't, and those firearms end up in the wrong hands and crimes are committed. One crime perpetuated another. Let's crack down on those straw purchases. That's an emphasis for the federal government. That's an emphasis for state government and local government to look at. If we want to make meaningful progress on gun crimes, let's take a look at the straw purchasers. Let's take a look at the mental health system. One of the other things that I had to do was I would sit from 7 in the morning until 8 in the morning when the system opened up, and I would enter mental health records. So when somebody was involuntarily committed, those forms were sent to the Pennsylvania State Police and they were entered in as a prohibitor in the firearms database. And I know database is a scary word, but I'll use it because it's nomenclature. Okay. But there was a real effort made to ensure that people with severe mental health issues weren't having access to firearms. These are things that I think the majority of people agree on in terms of appropriate restrictions on possession of a firearm. And so I look at things through that perspective and I say, why are we going this route where the burden is now placed on law-abiding citizens and local law enforcement to enforce this when we still have much, much more work to do in these other areas that can be as effective, if not even more effective? Let's try that first. Let's go after pleading down some of these sentences that would end up being prohibiting people from purchasing firearms. Let's not go after parents that want to buy their 16-year-old kid a .22 hunting rifle or a target shooting gun. Let's not go after those people. Let's go after the people that are out there that are criminals. Let's hold them accountable to the law. This was an initiative that I believe, as most initiatives are, politically motivated. The Attorney General, while I respect him as our state's Attorney General, his comments last week I found to be quite ironic and somewhat hypocritical. I can say that. I don't think he's a bad guy. I just think he got this wrong, and we look at his track record. He's on the verge of filing his 36th federal lawsuit against the federal administration for things he doesn't agree with. That's your taxpayer dollars too. Maybe some of those are good lawsuits. I don't know. I don't read every lawsuit that Bob Ferguson files. But the point is, you shouldn't throw stones if you live in a glass house. You should respect the concerns that the minority of people in the state, and that's right, a minority of people in this state oppose 1639. Listen to the voice of the minority voters on 1639 in communities like ours that are burdened by laws that are adopted with millions of dollars pumped into them from special interest groups that really aren't going to help us solve the critical issues surrounding gun violence in this country and in our state and in our community. By putting a burden on local law enforcement to enforce a somewhat unenforceable initiative, a somewhat unenforceable law, doesn't solve problems. So I'm very supportive of this. Obviously, I brought it forward. A number of other counties have done similar resolutions, and I'm not naive as to what my authority or where my power as a county commissioner ends. Believe me, we're reminded of that all the time. And that's okay. But sometimes in a community like ours, in a state like ours, it's important that these concerns be heard by our statewide elected officials, by our legislators. And we'll see how this works out in the courts. We know that that's coming up. We know that's on the horizon. So we know who will have the final say on it, but I wanted to ensure that these concerns were not lost in that debate. All of that being said, is there a motion to approve?
I would like to make a motion to approve the resolution opposing implementation of State Initiative 1639, or the enactment of any legislation that would infringe upon the lawful rights of its citizens to keep and bear arms.
I will second.
It's moved and seconded to approve item 8.9, the resolution opposing implementation of State Initiative 1639, or the enactment of any legislation that would infringe upon the lawful rights of its residents to keep and bear arms. Any additional discussion?
Yes. Just want those that are at home and do not have a copy of this to know that what this is basically just a declaration of our opinion. That's all this is. There is no binding factor on it, except for the fact that we're going to send a copy to our legislators and to our Attorney General. That's the binding aspect in this. But other than that, it's letting them know that we don't care for the law, and we think that there may be some constitutional and legal issues, and that it may, I like this part, beyond lawful application of its legislative and governance authority or duties. And that being a declaration, that's what this is. And I just wanted to make it clear before anybody goes out and says we're doing a whole bunch of other things. It's literally our opinion.
Any other comments? Okay, hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And the motion carries. Moving on to item 9, other business. Any department heads or electeds that would like to address the commission? Okay, hearing none. Moving on to, we have no public hearing, so we'll skip item 10. Move on to item number 11. We'll begin with Commissioner Trask, Commissioner Evelyn, and then I will finish up.
Thank you. So Friday, finally made it out of our driveway, and I was able to go with our coroner to the Kitsap autopsy facility. Quite an experience, but it was a lot of fun. Let's see, today, other than this meeting, we also have a meeting with WSDOT, and then the Mason Transit Authority meeting. Tomorrow, I have a Memorial Hall committee meeting. There's the annual EDC luncheon at the casino, I believe, Little Creek Casino. And then I'll be attending the after hours at Tupper's Fork, covering for the chamber. And then skipping to Friday, we'll have a meeting with the Squaxins out at the tribe, at the Squaxin, I think it's the Little Creek Casino. And then on Monday, we have a joint meeting with PAC.
Okay, very good, Commissioner.
All right. Attended the Orca meeting. I had a spectacular day in Olympia. I got a chance to meet a new senator that represents an area just above us. It turns out that she has a deep connection to Belfair, and because of that, I like her a lot more. She actually went to preschool in our little community and did some other things, and I found her to be very, very intelligent young lady. I look forward to working with her for the benefit of our community. I also had lunch with Tim Sheldon. We talked over some of the issues there. PRTPO meeting, WIRA 15 meeting. I met with the Republican chair and his organization, some folks on behalf of the YMCA, left board meeting, and then with the representative from Republic. I also had an incredible opportunity to again drive out with our plow workers. I got to tell you, this time instead of being in the big plow, I actually went in a F-350 4x4 truck, and we went and did the hills and the places that you normally wouldn't think about doing. Got stuck several times. It was really hairy. There was a line that was told to me by the superintendent out there. He says, Randy, if you see your driver put his seatbelt on, it's serious. Put your seatbelt on. We put our seatbelt on. I wore it. He put it on several times. He was right to put it on. It was pretty hairy up some of those hills trying to get back down it. But I got to tell you, the people don't realize there's a lot more than just the plowing, because we went up one area and I read on Facebook that nobody touched it. I went there, we did it twice in 2 hours, and you just couldn't tell. But people don't realize that these folks are there. But it's more than that. You're driving down the road, a tree falls down. Those trees don't just mysteriously just evaporate. People have to get out of the rigs, they have to plow it, they have to cut it, they have to move it. There is no road ferry that makes it all good in the morning when you get up. Somebody had to do it, and I wanted to give them some props. And with that, I'm going to be putting in a letter for a Green Star for all of these folks. They were incredible. And as for my community, after they were able to take care of the main core, man, were they awesome in my community. They got through and they were getting their people out left and right, even being nicer than they should have. I don't want to get anybody in trouble, but when the one lady called me, she says, I watched them go by in the plow, and they saw me shoveling. They backed the truck up and did my driveway real quick and just pushes it aside. She's like 80-some odd years old and handicapped. But it's just the idea that we probably shouldn't do that, but our folks are incredible. And I would hope that we would do that, and I know I would if I was in theirs. We will be meeting with WashDOT after this. EDC luncheon I'll be attending, Mason Transit Authority, EDC regular meeting. I also will be attending with the joint meeting with the Squaxum Tribe, Don Porter Celebration of Life, a joint meeting with the PAC, and I will also try to hit the North Mason Community Voice.
Very good, thank you. Yeah, I think we all had an opportunity to go out with our Public Works crews last week. It was quite a week for them, and you know, their shifts 12 on, 12 off, you know, and they did it with professionalism, and were safety oriented, and so we could sit up here and go on, but there's just, you can't say enough about how tremendous the response was in an unprecedented snow event. You know, if you look at, I saw PUD had said that this was one of the worst that they've had in terms of response since 2006. So we're going back quite a ways, and I'm sure, you know, there's maybe some folks that have been with Public Works a long time that maybe, you know, that have been out there plowing snow in previous snowstorms that could maybe, you know, have a comparison. But this was certainly one for the record books, and really appreciate everybody's efforts and all the communication with us as commissioners, and hats off to you guys. And so the nice thing about having some snow days is you have a snow day. The not nice thing about having a snow day is then you push everything off until the next week, and so that's kind of I'm looking at my calendar, and I might lose some more hair, but we do have DOT briefing and other briefings this morning, and then I'll be heading down to Olympia to meet with Representative Dolio from the Olympia area, with Thurston Mason VHO, to talk about funding for involuntary treatment court that we're going to be bringing online here over once the triage center is completed later on this year, and hopefully being able to secure some additional funding for that. One of the things that I learned preparing for the meeting was volume-wise, we are right up there with King County in terms of our two-county area and how many folks are going through involuntary treatment, and so we're not funded like King County. So we need to work on that disparity in order to get additional dollars into the system so that these folks can get the services that they need. Then I'll be heading back here for Mason Transit. Later this week, Criminal Justice Working Team. I'll also be at the EDC lunch, and then I was invited up for a tour of North Mason Fiber, so I'll be doing that this week, and then have a regular meeting of the Thurston Mason BHO. Canvassing board, Sheriff's Breakfast, and then Canvassing Board again. They meet 2 days in a row when there's an election. I'll also be at the Squaxin Tribal meeting on Friday, and then I have a Hood Canal Shellfish Initiative meeting later that day. Back for briefings in our joint meeting with the Planning Commission on Monday evening and our regular meeting on Tuesday evening. And with that, I believe that gets me all caught up on my calendar. And then we move on to item number 12, entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Motion and second, and we adjourn. We're adjourned. Have a good day, everybody.